Only 1/3 of high-potential Canadian startups founded in 2024 were still headquartered in Canada by 2025. Canada has the most educated population in the world and one of the most valuable territories a country could ask for. Canada could and should be one of, if not the most prosperous nations on Earth. Yet, we are in the midst of an economic crisis. We have become too comfortable. Over the last few decades, Canada has identified itself as being not American. But the question is, what do we stand for? We have become a nation of critics, a country of watchers. Perhaps we have avoided the wrongs of our neighbors, but what have we done right? Canada has long needed a cultural shift. This nation has the potential to become one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Today, there may finally be a catalyst. As Canada launches its largest defense investment since World War II, historically, it is moments like these that have resulted in a new paradigm of innovation. I predict that today we stand on the doorsteps of a new Canada, one that has finally decided to take itself seriously.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must.
It is quite apparent that the rules-based order is dead. International law is not real. We are moving from globalized free trade to nationalism. The world's nations have decided that they must act for themselves, that sovereignty is their most valuable asset. The United States has signified to the world that it is no longer the reliable partner that it once was. For Western nations that once saw the United States as a protector, this has been an important wake-up call that self-reliance is necessary. Meanwhile, China has become the world's manufacturing and critical mineral powerhouse, with a shipbuilding capacity that is 200 times greater than that of the United States. In a globalized world, the West sold away its manufacturing capabilities. We have developed an extreme over-reliance on foreign nations, leaving supply chains at risk. In conflicts such as in Ukraine and in Iran, small nations have demonstrated a significant and unexpected resilience. War has become a battle of cheap, scalable, and autonomous systems. In the Gulf, $4 million interceptors are being used to shoot down $30,000 drones. While Iran can produce 100 missiles per month, the US can manufacture only about 6 to 7 high-end interceptors in that same period. This has led to the procurement of cheap and effective Ukrainian interceptors, but they often utilize Chinese components. The reality is that if China shuts down these supply lines, we are in an awful position. Beginning in 2027, components containing rare earth metals or magnets of Chinese origin cannot be used in weapon systems ordered by the Pentagon. This necessitates a strong industrial base. Defense is Europe's fastest growing sector, projected to go 3.4 times over the next 6 years. Trump has requested a 50% increase in the defense budget for 2027, and defense tech funding has grown 13 times between 2021 and 2025. Canada has become complacent. Defense infrastructure in Canada is both outdated and under-equipped. Canada has long been the lowest defense spender across all G7 NATO countries. It is only spending 1.37% of GDP, consistently missing the 2% NATO target. Unlike every other major NATO ally, Canada has 0 major defense prime contractors, and defense procurement contracts take an average of 16 years, making any attempt to innovate impossible. By the time a new technology arrives, it is already outdated. This was sustainable when we could buy and rely on the United States, but now it is unable to meet our current demands. Financing technology and innovation in Canada is already at decade lows. Canadian venture capital firms are at their weakest level since 2016. A significant portion of this blame can be placed on financiers such as the Canadian Pension Plan, which now only hold 12% of investments domestically. In 2005, that was 74%. Now the entire Canadian venture capital industry is essentially run by a single crown corporation, BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. They represent around 62% of Canada's limited partnerships and VC firms. And on top of this, they're also Canada's most active and largest VC fund. Until last December, they had restricted all investments in defense companies, including through their LPs. This made financing in Canada near impossible, on top of all the other regulatory hurdles already in place. Culturally, Defense has also been an incredibly taboo industry. Glenn Cohen, ex-JTF2 squadron commander and founder of Canada's only national security venture capital fund, 19, was only able to raise $10 million of a $50 million fund target under these conditions. He said, quote, "I was laughed out of the room 4 and 5 years ago. Investing in defense was lumped in with big tobacco, porn, and cannabis." Unsurprisingly, Canada has had many high potential founders who have been forced to move and operate their companies to the United States. Hassan Ismail spent 3 years trying to build a defense tech startup in Canada. He could not get a manufacturing license without a contract, but no agency would contract a product that he wasn't licensed to build. Canadian investors wouldn't touch it. Now he's building a company in Silicon Valley. If Canada waits, builders like Hassan will continue to leave. Out of the Canadian defense companies that have somehow managed to exist under these conditions, 30% are seriously considering leaving Canada. This marks an enormous problem for Canada. Under these conditions, 3/4 of Canadian defense purchases have been from American firms. But at a time when we cannot be completely reliant on our allies, we need to have the capacity to defend ourselves. The Canadian Arctic represents 75% of Canada's total coastline and has been the center of Canada's defense discussion. American officials have called Canada's Arctic defense capabilities unacceptable. With the rising Chinese and Russian threats, the reality is that the Arctic is a North American vulnerability. If we cannot defend it, it is not going to continue being Canadian. While Russian and Chinese vessels operate at unprecedented levels in the Arctic, Canada cannot effectively track the threat. CA's coverage has dropped 40% in the last 50 years, and Arctic voyages have tripled since 1990. As global warming rises, so does access to natural resources and shipping routes. This opens up the potential for more conflict. While China operates in our waters undetected, the US, like much of the world, does not recognize Canada's Arctic claims over the Northwest Passage. This was demonstrated through the US CGC polar incident, where the United States sailed through Canada's waters without permission. Our broken procurement system is not helping. In 2023, Canada spent $2.49 billion on Arctic drones, which will not be fully capable until 2033. Nearly overnight, Canada has 180'd on how it views the defense industry, as it released its first ever defense industrial strategy. This prioritizes Canadian companies through a build partner buy framework, which targets a 70% domestic procurement target. This is backed by a national security exemption to sole source from Canadian firms and connects to Canada's economic ambitions. This plans to create 125,000 new jobs, $500 billion in Canadian security investment, a 240% increase in defense revenues, and 50% increase in defense exports. This is all part of the plan to increase Canada's defense spending of GDP to 5%, aligning with NATO. This is projected to lead to a cumulative total of $1.2 trillion in defense spending over the next decade, which for reference is about 4 times the spending from the previous decade. 6 months ago, Canadian defense startups could not even get bank accounts. Now Canada is a frontrunner to host a NATO-backed Defense Security and Resilience Bank, and is one of the first non-EU countries admitted into the Security Action for Europe Defense Procurement Program, allowing Canadian companies to bid on European contracts. And BDC, previously restricted investing in defense, has now launched a $4 billion platform in December to support and invest in defense startups themselves, which in the span of a few months has already increased to $6 billion. Currently, Canada's depleted defense industrial base is not capable of filling this investment gap. The infrastructure does not yet exist to support the money. However, this marks an opportunity. Canada must not merely grow an industry, but build one. Scalable startups are the only way to fill this gap fast enough. Canada stands where Europe and the United States did a few years ago, yet have the advantage to learn from what these nations have done and build from scratch. In the US, companies like Palantir needed to sue the US Army just to compete fairly with legacy defense primes. But in Canada, there is nobody to fight. Legacy primes took 30 years to hit $100 million programs. Companies like Anduril took 3. Defense is now being built on startup innovation, employing scalable technologies that can be built quickly and cheaply. In 2023, A16Z founded its American Dynamism Fund for investing in the national interest. Their portfolio now includes companies worth tens of billions of dollars. Anduril, founded in 2017, is now worth $60 billion. Helsing, founded in 2021, was worth 12 billion euros by 2025. There's no reason that Canadian companies cannot do the same. If Canada wants to reach 70% domestic procurement while quadrupling spending, this is the only way. Many are already taking charge, such as Dominion Dynamics, Juno Industries, and North Vector Dynamics in defense, and Reaction Dynamics, NordSpace, and Canada Rocket Company in space capabilities. If you're interested in reading more about these companies, the defense opportunity, or why Canada needs American dynamism, check out my Substack. The link is in the description. At the moment, much of Canada's strategy is simply promises. And while Canada is attempting to reform procurement with the DIA, it is still broken. Bureaucracy and regulation are still suffocating, and the Canadian government has yet to define what a Canadian company even is. Without a clear definition, a foreign subsidiary could qualify for domestic procurement contracts, and according to the Canadian Shield Institute, only 57 of the top 100 defense companies are Canadian-controlled. Canadian culture is still risk-averse and largely afraid of change. But now, external geopolitical pressures have made these investments essential. There is no backing out now. Venture capital, and the modern idea of a startup, was created in the aftermath of World War II and its massive R&D investments. Technologies like the internet, GPS, jet engines, semiconductors, penicillin, and microwaves all sprouted from military urgency. Perhaps today, history can repeat itself. Defense is the gateway drug for national ambition. It forces a nation to take itself seriously, to build hard things, to develop industrial capacity, to invest in its people, and to stop outsourcing sovereignty. When a nation is at stake, incrementalism disappears. When comfort is gone, we must rethink, innovate, and redevelop. Defense has always had a much larger economic multiplier than traditional government spending. But the end goal is not military, it is about rethinking how to build. This is the moment Canada needs to begin exploring again, to compete on a global stage, to build infrastructure, integrate hard technology in space, Arctic, and sea, in AI, infrastructure, housing, healthcare, energy, and education, with talent that finds a reason to stay in Canada. Studies have found that in the United States, a doubling in R&D spending during World War II led to a 30% increase in patents by 1970, and a more than doubling of high-tech employment in new manufacturing businesses. This is an opportunity not only to invent technology, but also the manufacturing and industrial base necessary to create it. Anduril recently announced Arsenal One, a hyperscale factory in Ohio, and the largest single job creation project in the state's history. Manufacturing is one of the biggest issues in all of this. Building an industrial base is a full-stack challenge. Power, supply chains, raw materials, skilled labor, logistics, and regulatory approvals. Canada has always been capable of stepping up. Shopify, the Canadarm, Juno Beach, Vimy Ridge. Success should not only be held in the hands of our forebears. We have some of the greatest talent in the world and one of the richest territories, but we produce a fraction of what we can. That can change.
Once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you.
If we do not start acting like we can build the future, we will live in a world built by others. Canada must not merely be polite, but respectable. We must be a nation of leaders, unafraid of the changing world, for we are the ones changing it. This is a generational opportunity. Canada is the biggest open space in NATO. The money is committed, and there is no backing out. The question is, what will we decide to build? As I mentioned before, I've been posting about the Canadian defense tech industry on my Substack. The link is in the description. I'll also be beginning an interview series on this channel titled Canadian Explorers, which is focused on the Canadians who are pushing the paradigm in space, sea, air, Arctic, and more. If that interests you, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching.